you've heard me talk about the importance of having an email list before, and I've even provided some tactical details about how to create a welcome sequence, how to promote your lead magnet on your podcast, and how that helps bridge the gap between someone being a listener and them becoming a paying client. Well, today on Podcasting for Financial Professionals, you get to hear from Allea Grummert, expert email copywriter and email subscriber platform magician. I just made that up for her. She and her team at Duet write email welcome and nurture sequences that build a deeper connection with your audience. She started out as a financial coach, quickly found a niche in the food blogger space, and has been helping bloggers, business owners, and creators show up better and more consistently through email for a little over 6 years now. She's my go-to for email marketing questions, resources, and services. And after this episode, she'll be yours too. Allea, thanks so much for being here with me today.
Thank you for having me. I've been looking forward to this conversation.
Absolutely. I'm excited to dive in and hear about your agency, what is now an agency for email. But you started back in 2016. So give me like the fast forward, like how did you get here?
Yeah. What happened? How did we get here? It started with me starting a personal finance blog the weekend of Memorial Day in 2016 from my roommate's couch in the dark while watching Gilmore Girls, because I was like kind of sad. I was like, everyone's on a boat but me. And so I was like, I'm going to make a website on Squarespace. And so I didn't even really know. Like, I had read a lot of blogs. I didn't know people made money from blogs. I just wanted to actually replace some of my part-time coffee shop income, which was like $45 a week. It was so little. By like doing budget coaching. And so that's actually why I started the website. And then it eventually became a blog. Fast forward, I did, 20 some blog posts over like a year and a half, 2 years. It was my digital playground. I got to learn about all of the things about writing for content, starting an email list, growing an email list, writing to those people, among all sorts of other things like sourcing photos and the details of blogging. And I had a friend she'd started a small ad agency in a small town in Nebraska where we lived, and she needed help. And she's like, if I bring on this client who needs help with email marketing, can you help me help them? And I was like, sure, of course. And so it's just like the email bubbled to the top. I'd done everything at my full-time job that one could do over 5 years for a small business. Like, I'd kind of been in all of these roles, with the exception of actually holding the camera, because we worked in video production. They were like, just don't drop it. And I was like, don't hand it to me and we won't have a problem. Like, oh my goodness, your girl is a klutz. I was like, please, I will just go handle the food and iron some pants. Don't hand me a camera. So I got to the point where I was like, okay, I'm ready to be able to do something different with my creativity and what I'm learning in the online space. So I actually went part-time working at the video production company. That was my, what people could call a bridge job as I built out Duet. Actually worked with that friend for a little while. And then, we were in just two different life stages and I didn't want to risk our friendship. I was like, I was bullied as a child. I am not out here going to risk my adult friendships by starting a business together. And that just sounded awful. So she did her own thing and I started my agency. It was terrifying. It wasn't intended to be an agency, I should say, but starting this business at all, while I sound happy talking about it now, at the time, I started my business out of burnout and depression. I was like, I'd gone through my first breakup. I had moved twice in 3 months. Like, I had to get glasses. I was like, ugh, everything was just like awful. And then you put on top of that, like, I'm living alone for the first time, which I'm an extrovert, and I didn't know how that was going to pan out. I'm paying to live alone for the first time, which was a first. I'd always lived with roommates and had really cheap rent, paying off my student loans. Like, it was a lot. And I just like, it was an emotional, like, at an emotional standstill, if you will. I just like wasn't feeling high, wasn't feeling low. And I had a friend point that out and I was like, oh, so that's what that is. So eventually I got on to an antidepressant. And that's important because there was a time at the very beginning of starting Duet where I don't think I slept through the night for 10 nights in a row. And I was like, we have a problem. And I bring all that up because that really shaped how I started my business. Because while I loved email marketing, I didn't want to send other people's weekly emails. I didn't want to be on retainer. I wanted to be able to deliver the work though, and know that I had done a good job, that I've delivered the whole thing, and I can send the bill. There was something about being on retainer or clocking in hours that just felt like, how am I ever going to rest at night knowing I've delivered on what the client expects? So I built out project-based services, productized services, and I have been delivering on those ever since. So I actually formally started Duet in 2018 and then landed on my signature offers the following summer. Most of my clients came from the FinCon space because that's where I had come out of as a little blooming blogger. So that's where most of my clients were. And then I was featured on the Food Blogger Pro podcast as a guest at the end of 2019. And so then ever since then, most of my clients have actually come from the food blogging space. So there you go. That's the fun run around. And somewhere in there, I decided that I wanted to hire out parts of the process to other people on the team. I know that managing people is not everyone's cup of tea. I love it. They are the feather in my cap, if you will, my team. Like, I've had somebody on my team for over 5 years, and I'm 6.5 years into business. My project manager has been with me for 4 years. To me, that proves that I've done a good job. Like, I don't mean to brag, but at the same time, I'm like, man, people are sticking around and they say they like to work for me. And that makes me even more motivated to do a good job for them and to train new people really, really well so they have the same experience and that they love my clients as much as, if not more than me. No, I don't know if they could love them more than me. But this project manager went on maternity leave and she was just like, I can't imagine, like, how am I going to give up these projects to somebody else while I'm gone? And by the time we trained the new person, she was like, actually, I think I'm just going to take the last week off. Like, Emma's got it. I feel good. Like, everyone's like, has just taken the right amount of responsibility and yet being able to trust one another has been really cool to see.
That is really awesome. Yeah, we hear so much about like, I can't find a VA. I can't find a good VA. I can't find, team members are leaving constantly. Like that is such common chatter, I think, in our space that I'm with you. I'm in your boat. I have a great team. Many of them have been with me for years. And yes, I pay attention to them and I am compassionate as far as like who gets what work and what their life situation is unfolding to be. But I don't think I'm doing anything like groundbreaking as far as how you would treat your team or how you would delegate work. But can you pull out anything that you've figured out as like, oh, I'm doing this thing well. That's why my team is happy.
Yeah, I have a couple. I think part of it, why people maybe suck at having VAs, is because they don't take the time. Like, it's on you as the CEO, I would say primarily, is that like we think that VAs just know how to do everything. And so we're like, well, bring them in, they'll fix it. And it's like, actually, it is your responsibility to explain to them exactly what you want them to do. And I think it's because we as entrepreneurs think like entrepreneurs, whereas like VAs are very task driven. They're not here to like reshape the process. They just want to know the process. And I learned early on as a freelancer myself, if it's not clear to me what's expected, I'm just an anxious pile. Like if the client hasn't told me, so like it's my job to make sure my team members know what's expected so they can rest at night, knowing that they've done a good job and they've completed the whole thing. And so that just looks like um, being really dedicated to the process of training. And I actually hired a business coach for half of a year once, and we created a training program for moving my now project manager from a VA to being a project manager. So how do I move her from doing the what and the how to understanding the why and teaching her more hows? Like, how is Allie thinking about strategy? Why does this even matter? How do bloggers get revenue? And how do they get it from email? Like I had to teach her all of these things that I think really holistically and then break it down for her as in a form of training and to be able to say like, even like one of them is like, understand how bloggers get people to their website, period. If you don't understand that, you're not going to understand the role of email marketing alongside SEO, alongside Pinterest. And that matters because of who we're talking to and our audience largely being bloggers and content creators. You just have to understand the waters that we're swimming in here. Like, we're not working in e-commerce, we're working in blogging space. The other one is I tell this story, but boy, did it humble me. What was it? A couple summers ago, I had little one-on-ones with my team members, and I really don't do that very often. They're all very good at their jobs. They barely need to meet with me. We just reach out directly if we have things we need to talk about. But at the time, I was trying to do these one-on-ones a few times a year. And when I tell you, like 4 out of 5 team members on my call with them all gently but clearly said, "It's you, Allie. You're the problem." And I remember being like, first of all, I'm going to take that as a win that people on my team feel like they can tell me that, like they can trust me with that information. I'm not scary. And yeah, B, I was like, okay, I'm going to go fix that. And the issue was, I'm going to share this because it's such a practical example. And I hope you, listener, are like, mind blowing, right? Is that one team member is like, well, when you assign us things in Slack, they get lost. Another says, when you tell me things in Slack, you don't tend to tell the whole story. Or when you tell us things in Slack, you don't really give us a due date. And so we just assume it has to happen right away. Meanwhile, I've mentioned my project manager. I was like, no, whatever Laura tells you is what you should do. Like, actually, Laura runs this company. I'm just here for like, I'm in the background. Don't, like, if Laura has told you something is due, do that. But here they're thinking, well, Allie's the CEO. I have to do what she tells me immediately. And I'm like, no, do not take me that seriously. Basically, with some of these tasks, like, they're not that important in comparison to our client work. And so what else happened? Yeah, they're not giving us enough information. The task itself isn't clear. It's getting lost and there's no due date. So my business coach, I just started working with her at the time, was like, Allie, you guys use Asana. Why don't you assign tasks to your team members in Asana? And I was like, girl, that's crazy. I can just drop it to them in Slack and they make a task. She's like, clearly that's not working. And so I had to really focus. Okay, I'm taking this thought. I have to make it into a task. I need to give all of the details. I need to assign it to a person with a due date. And the amount that my brain had to stretch, I told my team, I was like, I hope you're happy. This is breaking my brain. And they are all much happier. Like, things are not getting lost. They know the order of events. I did tell them, part of the process, though, is that when you get a task assigned from me, within 2 days, I need you to read the whole task, make sure it makes sense and you have everything. If not, you prompt me right away to fill in the blanks, even if the task isn't due for 3 weeks. Because future Allie is not going to remember what current Allie was intending by that. It's not going to be any clearer than it is right now. So we've put that process into place. And so those things just live in Asana. And yeah, that was really, really stretching for me. But that's the stuff that I realized, my coach was like, you're becoming a better CEO, like a good CEO. And I was like, is that what's happening? Is that why I feel like I'm going through a metamorphosis? Because, what is it? When superheroes change into different costumes, I was like, this is a lot of work, becoming this different person. And so, yeah, I hope that's a good example of training initially. Like I mentioned, I have this training program for my project manager, and I will tell you, once you have a training program in place, even if it requires being updated before you bring on someone else, I sleep so well at night. Because if Laura, instead of going on maternity leave, decided to go have a baby and not come back, I have this entire asset to bring on someone new, not just to cover her part-time, but I could cover her full-time. And that is what gives me peace of mind, because it's not all weighing on whether or not someone leaves me. Because I'm treating my people well. They still have reason. They could have good reasons to leave, to go be a stay-at-home mom. And so that's how I do it.
That is awesome. There's so many good nuggets in there. And a lot of times, yes, as business owners, and I'm also thinking of the financial advisor who's building the team of advisors under them, we have ideas about, oh, we should do this, and oh, we should do that, and oh, this would be, and I need this thing on my website, and da da da. And so when you have those fresh ideas and you're feeling inspired, you definitely want to just slack your team and just jabber about your idea and can we do this, and can you do that? How, what else do you need to do this, and have that conversation. But your story highlights it perfectly. You could have that conversation, but it needs to turn around and be put into a, flow for the project, an assigned deadline description with the little pieces attached, okay, use this headshot, not that one, whatever your vision was, it can't just hang out in Slack and just, or whatever other communication the team is using.
Even knowing what projects to bring to the team, I will say having a coach has been so helpful because I'm not using my team as a sounding board because they have a hard time distinguishing, is this an Allea idea brainstorming session or is this something we actually need to take and run with? So I've had to learn basically like what information is important for me to share and what is actually more beneficial for me just to keep close to the chest until I'm ready to actually do it because it reduces the noise of what your team is having to wrap their brain around.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, again, I think all of this is super useful to anyone trying to build a team, like not necessarily an agency owner like you and I, but an advisory practice, a coaching practice, anything like that. If you're bringing on other people to either do the work or to assist clients or to fully manage clients under you, you're going to need a system like this. So that's really helpful to hear.
Thank you. And even I remember my business coach being like, why do you have to-dos everywhere? Like in Basecamp and a Google Doc and the notes app on your phone and written on your desk. Like that was also another process of like, I just need to put everything into Asana for my own brain to know that like, I don't have to go check these tabs. She also was really encouraging me, like, don't check your email from the chiropractor's office. Don't check your Asana. She's like, are you actually going to be able to do good work there? Like, or is it better just to completely check out and you just do that when you're behind your desk? So you don't have these open loops of like, oh, I need to get back to somebody. Oh, I need to, like, that protecting your mental space is also really important.
Well, and I want to kind of circle back to something you said earlier, and maybe it has to do with the mental space where you were at the beginning of your business, but you knew you didn't want to be on retainer and you knew you didn't want to send weekly emails for people. That thought right there is like groundbreaking because and I'm sure you've heard it too, like much of the narrative in the service space is to be on retainer, is to have something where people are paying you constantly for your services and you're, I don't want to say like always available, but you're like always producing, right? Like weekly or whatever it is. And you structured things, and we call it productizing, where it's here's a chunk. I did it all, review it all, or done. Like, bye-bye. If you need another re-up, then we'll do another chunk, right? So that's so interesting. Could you walk me through that thought process, how you productized emails, right? Because we're all thinking like, oh, like email is something that you're supposed to send every week. Like, yeah, a retainer would make sense for something like that. So how did you and why did you change that?
Yeah. Well, I should say, full disclosure, I am considering creating some sort of retainer work now that I have a team that is reliable. But solo Allie was like, no, absolutely do not want to manage this. So I think I had a couple like monthly retainers at the start, but knowing that that was not the game plan long term. And so I started August of 2018. By November, I attended a webinar put on by Val Geisler, and she was like number 6 or 7 at ConvertKit back in the day, but she was on her own now and doing freelance email marketing. And she pitched an incubator, and that incubator started in January. So within 6 months of starting, I was like, I'm going to go learn from an expert. And Val taught us her process, and she has 2 primary services, one being an audit, one being the done for you project. So I learned it from her, and it's worked for me ever since. I've tweaked it a bunch. I now require the audit to do the done for you work versus like an option. You can do it solo, you can do it together, like, but I've had to work through that. I've had to figure out like, when do you send the second bill? Is it at the very end? Is it partway through? Like there's a lot there detail wise that I've had to play around with. I now have a pay in full option and like so many people do it. Like just ask. People are like, yeah, I'd love to save $200 and pay you $12,000 up front for the whole project. And then that gives you peace of mind as a business owner because you just sock away the taxes for that. You sock away the second half of it for when you do need to transfer it to your main checking account. So that's really helpful. I just know I have that kind of that fund in a separate checking account or savings account in my bank for when that time comes. So I have what's called the email strategy playbook. That's what I've named the audit, because it's more than just auditing. It's also like, here's some ways to do some systems. Here's recommended sequences. Here's what's working, what's not, what I recommend. And then from there, in what I call the duet debut, which picture this in your mind, it's coming with jazz hands. I can't say the duet debut and not do a little jazz hands. But here's why this works, because we're not doing live emails for people, which is also kind of like odd and risky, I guess, in the email copywriting space, because everyone else is doing launch emails. They're like, we're going to make you all this money. We're going to make you all this money. We're going to do this big launch. We're going to do your Facebook ads, all the different things. Whereas I was like, coming from the blogging space and having really learned about automations during that time while using what was ConvertKit at the time, I loved the idea of building a connection with a brand new subscriber. So with Ask Allie, which is my old personal finance blog, I had people reply back to one of my automated emails often, like people from the other side of the world sharing with me their own personal finance issues and pain points. And I was like, oh my gosh, if this person feels like they know me and trust me enough to tell me about their money issues, which is like a sensitive topic, this is this is working. Like you can actually build a genuine connection even with an automated email. And so that was my direction when I started. I was like, I really want to help people build that relationship with their subscriber from the get-go, which is really not what everyone else is doing when they're doing launch emails and all this, like, we're going to make you money. That was really kind of stressful for me because I was like, I can't guarantee I'm going to make you direct money from a welcome sequence. Like, but what we're doing is we're building brand loyalty, we're building traffic, which for bloggers, it is money. Um, but like, that was some of my money woes as a business owner of like, how can I ask people to pay me this much when I can't like show them a direct ROI versus like a launch can? I had to work through that for a long time. But like knowing how much my clients want to build this relationship, they already have these wonderful resources that they want their subscribers to know about. They do have products they want them to know about. And we can include all of that in these automated emails so that every new subscriber, whether they join now or 6 months from now, get the same introduction into their community. Like that is such an intangible confidence that supports the creator in knowing that they're growing something meaningful. And so when they do launch something, or just they send an email and they know how many clicks are going to go through to their website, they know that their email is making them money through their ad network or through products that they have. So that's like a that's why I can do email marketing in a project-based way, because we're creating what we call a welcome and nurture sequence for creators. And so the duet debut is where we actually, after the playbook, that auditing process, we do audience research, we cull from the audience, and we're like, what were you looking for when you came across this site? Like, what solution were you looking for? What problem were you trying to solve? And since you've been on the list for a while, what do you love most about this creator? What do you like about their content or their recipes? And we use that information, what they're struggling with, what they need help with, and what they already love, and we front load the heck out of their onboarding to make sure that like they don't have to be on the list for 2 years in order to get these kitchen hacks that everyone loves or to hear about the cookbook. Oh my gosh, the research we've done, and people are like, oh, I didn't know you had a cookbook. And we're not talking like an ebook. We're talking like this has been published and you can buy it in a store cookbook. And the creator's like, oh shoot, yeah, we should probably tell them about that. It's like, yeah, yeah. So when I tell you about like the peace of mind of knowing at least everyone on my list has heard about my cookbook 4 times, whether they've opened all the emails or not, we can't be entirely sure. But we write all those emails for them based off of the research and the strategy and what's most important to the creator as well, right? Because people aren't saying, I came to your website looking for your cookbook, but the creator's like, these things are important. I need to make sure they know about this top affiliate, this cookbook, and this, welcome video I want everyone to get, or this resource that I want to make sure everyone has. And this is like where I thrive, Virginia. Like I can just take all these different pieces and put them all together. And I've trained my team in how to do that as well now, too. Like for me, it's like the most exciting puzzle. Whereas for a creator, when you have 900 plus blog posts, you're like, I don't know what to feature. I don't know how to sort all this information into 15 emails. And we freaking love it. It's my favorite. It's my favorite job. And then we write all the emails and we set them all up for them in their email service platform. And we like announce it to their list, turn it on, the whole thing, which I think also sets me apart as a copywriter because I'm doing more than just writing. I'm like, we're getting in there, we're testing the links, we're able to like add link triggers so we actually can track how many people have clicked on a sales page. Like we do the whole gamut.
Yeah. Yeah. I've definitely come across that where you have someone who only writes them and then you're thinking like, well, great. Like now what do I do? And I don't understand segmentation and I don't understand link triggers like you mentioned or like all these different email marketing and online like lingo type things that if you think like a financial advisor or a money coach or a CPA or a bookkeeper, like they know their stuff. They don't know this stuff. Like this is a foreign language. Like certain terms that even you said that's like normal to me and you is probably like okay, I need to Google that. Like, what is it? So I don't want people listening thinking like, oh my God, how do I do all that? Like, what? I don't even know what some of that is. I mean, that's why you're here today, is to share with us exactly that. Almost like, hey, this is what Allie's an expert at. You don't have to do all of this. And even on my show and in my content, I speak about the importance of having an email platform, a welcome sequence, a nurture sequence, all these things set up for your brand in addition to the podcast. Like people cannot just go from the podcast to a buyer. There has to be a bridge, and that bridge is your email sequence. It can start with a lead magnet. They can get into becoming a subscriber to your email subscriber platform. You mentioned Kit. It's now called Kit. It used to be ConvertKit. There's several others. Maybe you want to list those off, Allie, but that is the bridge. And that's how you start nurturing people to the point, like you mentioned, that they feel like they know and trust you so deeply because of your emails that they will reply and tell you all their trash, right? Like all their money, like fears and mistakes and issues, which that would, if you think about it, be such a big step toward actually doing service work together, right? For them to actually sign up for your budget coaching or for them to actually sign up to, learn from you for investing or to have you do their taxes or whatever your profession is, right? You need that trust factor is like super important.
That's how I hired my first business coach. And then I worked with her for 2 years, 2.5 years. Like, is that I replied back to one of her emails and we chatted. She was like, would you like to hop on a call? And I was like, yeah, I would. And then I was like, how quickly can I throw money at you? The little money I had, I was like, let's go. Basically, I was like, you ask the question, you're like, how much can I get this $1,500, earn this back? She's like, you sell the audit easier 2 times. And I was like, oh, that is really, like, my audit was only $750 at the time. But I want to go back to what you said too, because it mimics a lot of like how I explain even the name Duet, which is the name of my company, Duett, which is the German spelling. I come from a very German family. And it's that I talk about how like you get to be the expert of what you're an expert in, and I get to be an expert in email, just like Virginia gets to be an expert in podcasting. And what's great about a duet is that it's 2 people singing 2 different parts, and it's great. It sounds wonderful. So like by bringing 2 strengths together, you have something even better or more creative than you would do by yourself. And the other part of duet is that it sounds like do it. And I learned when I worked in video production, like I mentioned, not only should I never hold a camera, I was actually asked to not participate in creative sessions. Apparently my input was not helpful. It's just maybe a little too creative and not applicable. I don't know. Don't worry, I talked about it in therapy. But I just remember though, like as soon as they were done with the creative treatment and they were ready to get started, they'd say, okay, Allie, like they'd tap me in and say, let's go. And I realized my role as being an implementer is something people will pay for. So many people come to me saying, I should have set up my email address years ago. I should have whatever. And I'm like, well, at the end of 4 months, 5 months, it will be done. Okay, all done. And then they're like, I see it. Like, that's also part of it, is like, it's weighing on your mind as a creator of like, I need to do this, I need to do this, I need to do this. And like, that's my whole job, is just to do it for you, so that when we're done, you feel more confident growing your list, talking to your list, sending your newsletters. You can then finally move into an actual proper email strategy beyond the automations, which is like strategy number one.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that's something across all the online marketing stuff that people forget exists, actually, is the automation piece. Like, I can't tell you how often I talk to somebody and they're like manually posting social media still. And I'm like, well, like even inside Instagram, you can schedule a reel for like, I think it's out almost, I think it's like 14 days or something like that. You can schedule inside Instagram. And even if you don't want to use Instagram, you're on some other platform or even LinkedIn, there's a scheduling feature integral to the platform. So I want to highlight that because we're plagued with needing to do all this work all the time, and it is exhausting. Whereas if you have the power to segment your thoughts and
Seriously, compartmentalize them.
yes, and just be like, okay, I need to schedule out my LinkedIn posts for the next 2 weeks, and you sit down and you focus on that one thing, you're done for 2 weeks. And email is much the same way. You set that up. Obviously, there's a process to it. I'm sure you can control how long this welcome sequence is and how often they get an email. Like, all this stuff is just set up and you don't have to worry about it anymore, thanks to the power of scheduling. So if you're not scheduling blogs to go live on your website, if you're not scheduling social media, if you're not scheduling emails to go out, if you're not scheduling your podcast episodes ahead of time, like, there's so many things that you could just get off of your plate if they were all just scheduled out. And then you would know, and you could like literally put it on your calendar. Okay, this date in the future, I like kind of run out of scheduled content. So 15 days before that, I need to do another creation round, right? And you could just map out all of this marketing stuff, is what we're going to say, for your business, and or have someone do it for you. And you're so relieved.
Yeah. And you can take a week, you can take so much brain space off from having to think about it and doing it in the moment or every week. I even, my current business coach, the idea of like, what if 1 month a quarter you really like push towards sales and hit your sales goals for the quarter, and then for the rest of the quarter you can do whatever you want. And I was like, what? Like, I don't have to like do quote unquote do sales like constantly. And she was like, no, like, just hit your goal and then move on. And I was like, okay, that sounds delightful, So similarly, like with marketing, being able to batch it, super smart. And then what I love about automations, and I left this part out, back to also why I don't do launches, back to that burnout and depression, and like, I can't no, my life could not be on a schedule back then. The idea of having things be due by a certain date, like hell or high water, nope. And so what's great about automations is you set it up and you're like, oh, there's a typo, I'll go change it. And you hit save, and it's saved from here till forever. Like, I don't have to worry about a typo going out. I don't have to worry about scheduling these emails for the right time and the right time zone to the And I know that probably also freaks some people out, to like, this email goes out to everyone, in an automation, and it could, and to me, it's a peace of mind. Like, you can easily go and take that sentence out if you don't like it anymore. And then it's done, but it's already set up for you to be able to go do that.
What do you say to the people that might be concerned about, like, again, through the financial lens, is like, well, there's financial news that comes out all the time. Like, I need to be current. I need to look like I'm, well informed and speak to my audience about whatever the latest, greatest thing is. But then we have this automated sequence going, and that was created one time. Like, how do I know that that automated sequence is going to serve them in the way I want it to, but it's not going to have like current news in it. Like what's the balance there? What do I do? How do you manage that conversation?
Great question. So I'm going to use Duet as an example. So we have our welcome sequence. Then once people are completed with the welcome sequence, they can start getting our newsletters. So while they're in there, we keep them protected, like a little incubator. Like, this is everything you need from me for like, a week and a half. And then I'll open up, the floodgates to everything else. So you start getting my weekly newsletter, which goes out on Thursdays. And then you'll also start getting my evergreen nurture sequence that goes out on Tuesdays. So anything that can be made or formatted to be evergreen, I put in that nurture sequence. It has over 80 emails, Virginia, that just go out every Tuesday. So I know that that's ultimately supporting the biggest questions that I get. While on Tuesdays, I get to send out my more timely content. Here's a podcast that I dropped. Here's an affiliate promotion that's going on right now. Here's an event that I'm going to be speaking at, like, or even like I do a personal update a couple times a year. Like, I get to do that in those emails. So that's the easiest way to do it. If you have a tool like Kit, you can also use something called Snippets. This is an advanced strategy. I feel like I should put that in bold. You do not have to do this, but you can actually put a snippet in all of your automated emails with like a current events snippet, if you will. And there's one place in Kit you can update that content, and it'll update in every email. So you could
Whoa.
technically put that at the bottom of all of your automated emails, and it'll be like, here's the latest from, Virginia. And it
Yeah.
will, and in one place, you update it and it will
I didn't
update
even know
all
that
of those
feature
emails.
existed.
Here you go.
That is
Yeah, it's pretty
amazing.
magical.
That is wow. Okay. So I feel like I just want to like put a little asterisk right here and say, like, clearly Allie knows all the things about how to like like you said, just protect your subscribers while they're new so they don't get
Mm-hmm.
inundated with your welcome sequence and your nurture sequence and your weekly emails. And so they're protected and they're only getting the welcome sequence for like a week and a half or two, whatever you decide. Then they start to get these other things and like how to set that up and how to like segment your audience into different like potential groups for your services, like all that stuff. It does get complicated. It is hard. I have been in the back of like multiple different email subscriber platforms, and each one is different. They use different language to talk about segmentation or automation. And so that can be very confusing. So if you're like, what the heck, I'm never going to do this for myself, like, I just want you to talk to Allie. Like, for real. That's why she's here.
It is complicated. And like, let me remind you, I've been doing this for almost 9 years. Like, I've been there as the platforms have changed or been created. And yeah, we mentioned Kit, but there's Flowdesk and MailerLite and MailChimp and Constant Contact and Drip, and there's so many. And so, yeah, if you're listening to this and you're like, can we talk? We can. So you can contact me at duet.co/contact. We can hop on a call. I told Virginia that I'm happy to offer a couple free coaching calls. So a 15-minute call with me, like, not a sales call, unless you want to know more about how we can work together. It's just me answering the question with you of what's the one next step for you when it comes to email marketing. I love being able to coach on this because oftentimes you listen to a podcast like this and you're like, I need a snippet. And I'm like, honey, you don't have an opt-in. Like, we need to redirect where we focus. And that's hard to do when it's so complicated and there's so much and you get excited. We're entrepreneurs. That's what we do. Get excited about things. And so I'd love to be able to do that with you. You can do that at duett.co/free and tell me a little bit about your business, and you'll get access to my calendar there.
Yay. That is awesome. Okay. So, speaking of excited, I was
Woo!
very excited to see you launch a podcast.
I did. I did. Let
That
me
was
tell
so
you.
cool. So dive in. Do tell us what made you launch? How long
Yeah.
have you been sitting on this? And then how did you launch?
So it was spring of 2024. I was thinking, like, I need to do more. I need to show up a little bit bigger. I realized after speaking at Craft and Commerce 2023 to the mastermind group that meets prior to the event, I was like, I had someone so sweet tell me, like, Allie, your biggest problem is your obscurity. Like, you clearly know your stuff, just people don't know who you are. And I was like, first of all, rude. No, I'm kidding. But second of all, like, it was really affirming, Virginia, like just for a minute as like a business owner to be like, yeah, because I had my head down doing my work. And I've been serving my audience and I've been serving them consistently for years, like 4 years, 5 years at that point, 4 years. And yeah, to be kind of acknowledged in that way, but then also simultaneously being like, all right, so what does that mean? Like, are you playing small? How can you impact more people? And so I was thinking of either starting a YouTube channel or a podcast. And then, of course, you're like, why not both? And you're like, because you are one person and you get sick easily. Like, and you love naps. Like, what if we didn't? What if we didn't go too hard? Uh, right? Like, we have to temper our excitement sometimes with reality. And so I sat on it for a while, worked with my business coach to kind of lay out some pros and cons of either one. And the reason I went with a podcast is because the bar of entry is just lower. Like, I can show up in what I like to call a party bun. Like, I can show up messy and it's not going to go on YouTube. Like, I also use Riverside, like what you do, and we record the video, but like, I'm not planning on using any of it for a while because that's also like, that's a whole other process that my team has to learn. I decided to do the podcast. And then I brainstormed the name and I chatted with friends of mine who've had successful podcasts that are on like the iHeart Network and whatnot. And I'm like, okay, Jen, help me, and she, yeah, really kind of helped break down Jen Smith from Frugal Friends.
Yep. She was on recently. So everybody go back to that episode and check out Jen.
We love Jen. Jen has the most dry, direct humor. I need more of that injected in my life, let me tell you.
Cracking me up before, during, and after our interview. So I loved talking with her. It was fantastic.
She's one of my first FinCon friends. I think we met in like 2017. My first FinCon was in 2016, and I think I met her the following year. So yeah, but I talked with Jen and she gave me pointers of like, okay, we really need these first handful of episodes to be really SEO driven, like searchable, shareable, your SEO description, like all of that. And then landed on a name. I was going to call it Welcoming Strangers for like a hot minute. And then I was having a conversation with someone and I was like, I just want them to have happy subscribers. And she was like, hold up. Like, that should be the name of your podcast. So it's called Happy Subscribers. It also feels a little bit more positive than Welcoming Strangers.
Yeah.
Like I'm
like, that sounds almost creepy. What's going on there?
It could be taken wrong. Whereas Happy Subscribers is just like pure happiness straight out of the gate.
Yes.
And so landed on doing an interview format. And I really kind of struggled because I wanted it to be this like absolute resource of all the things Allie knows. Like almost like a private podcast feed in a sense. I'm like, I can just produce all these content because I know all the stuff and I want to get it out of my head. But my business coach was like, let's be real. Like you're using this to grow and expand and you can't just keep it focused on what you know. So I do a balance of like 3 or so interviews and then a solo cast with just me. And the interviews have been so much fun. I get to be a journalist, quote unquote. Again, I went to school for journalism, for advertising and public relations is in that college at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. Go Huskers. And so I just got to I get to think about like, how do I want this what angle do I want? What do I want to draw out of what they've told me so far? And then doing the interview, just getting to be curious. And that's something that I have had to learn as an adult, how to be a good listener and not make it about me. I have friends who can attest to that. Like that was a whole growing pain thing. I was like, I didn't know you could ask follow-up questions. I just thought I would tell you more about me. And so this is my season of getting to like really flex that muscle of getting to learn and get curious. And I always tell my guests, like, this is your time to shine. Like, I just want this to be a way for people to learn about what you do and what works for your audience and your work and why it's important in the world. And so I always ask the question towards the end of like, what's your soapbox? Like, what's important about your work and why does it matter to people? Because that's what fuels the work that we do. Even if we're like in the tactics of SEO and food photography and email segmentation, like bringing it back to like, what is the thorn in your side that's like, I have to keep doing this, like, because it matters. Thorn in your side makes it sound like a bad thing, but what's stoking the fire? I just did a big Popeye arm. You should know that. Like, what's this? What's stoking your fire? What gets you excited? But it's almost like it comes from this mindset to like a soapbox is like there's some sort of injustice and you are trying to right that. That injustice might be moms are overwhelmed at dinner time when really they just want to spend time with their kids and eat a healthy meal, right? And that is why you do what you do. So like, what was wrong in the world that what you're doing was created for yourself and maybe initially, but now it benefits other people? Like getting to ask that question is such a joy for me because I get to learn so much more about my guests. So that's happy subscribers and how I got here. And so I just launched it November of 2024. So it took like 6 months of like thinking from the like genesis of I need to do something new to actually having it produced and up for the world to see.
So you shared with me off air that the solo episodes have really been some work. It's been a process for you. It's really stretched you. So tell us about that, because I think people are afraid of solo episodes, even though they're super important because it's your platform. You need to be seen as the expert. And I think that creates that balance between in your interviews, you're highlighting the other person, your guest. But then in your solo episodes, you're like, oh, yeah, like I'm the business owner. Let me tell you, let me teach you. So talk to me about that personal growth that you've had.
So where I'd mentioned like I could just do this as a private podcast feed and spill all my information, it's less about me just straight up teaching and more how do I present this as a concept versus just a to-do or a how-to, which is different. Like when you are a person like you and I who are like doing the things all the time, that tends to be our like, that's our starting ground. That's what we present on at summits and masterminds and in roundtables or to our email list. But this is my first experience being like, okay, sit and think about like you have, one solo cast a month. How do you convey your authority on something in a way that is, I don't know, not so on the nose, if you will? So thinking about like, I actually just made a master list in my like solo cast document of like things solo cast can be around. Have an opinion on something. What's something you've observed? What are your clients asking about? What are problems that you're seeing in the industry? Like, and speaking to those things versus here's how to use segments in ConvertKit. So it's been good for me to do that, but stretching for sure, because this is a whole different way of thinking. I'm so used to just producing for my email list. And I'm so excited about this new method of communication with my audience. Like I wrote emails for 5 years and I created these nurture emails and I've promoted all of the things. And now I'm like, oh, my medium has changed and it's kind of a relief, but it's a different type of content planning because I get to think about like the guest and all that, which is nice because then I just have an hour-long conversation, create the assets, call it a day. Now I just get to redirect my time and energy to thinking really purposefully about how I present myself as an expert. Because I don't know if it's clear, I don't go around telling people why they should create an email list. By the time they come to me, they already know. Like I leave that to the Amy Porterfields and the Jenna Kutchers. Like they can have that market. I'm not interested in talking about why you need an email list all the time. So it's like I want to make sure that the people who know that they should work with me, it's really clear. Like I'm not working with brand new beginners. I have tons of free content around that. And you have those other resources as well. But the people who work with me are like, I'm ready to take this to the next level, or I've gone through this little course, or I've been doing this process for a couple of years. I don't know if it's still working. Can you come look at it? Like that's where I fit in the market. And so I also have to keep myself out of the beginner market or I'm going to attract the wrong people.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's great advice for even money coaches, profit coaches, CPAs, whoever. Like, if you are kind of sensing that people who come to you often don't understand what it is you do or aren't convinced that they need you yet, and you find yourself explaining why your services are valuable, I mean, you got to sit there and evaluate, like, am I even reaching the right people? Like, do I want these beginners where I have to educate them why they should do this thing or why they should hire me or why they should invest or why they should have a pro do their taxes or whatever it is, right? Or do I just want someone who's like, yeah, I already know that. Can you just do it?
That's seriously the best clients. And here's the thing. What I like about those clients, especially in the blogging space, everybody was a DIYer. Everybody DIY'd at first. So we understand I am capable of doing the thing, but at this point, it's not a good fit for me. I don't want to do it. So there's some sort of change in your ideal audience that's saying, yeah, I know I can do this. I know I can invest. Like for me personally, this is my shame for the FinCon space of like, I pay a financial advisor, like I don't know how to use index funds and I have no interest in learning. Like I'm just not. And so I'm like, I know that I can and I'm choosing not to. So who can I find that I can trust? That becomes the question.
I want to circle back to one thing that's been in the back of my head this whole time. What do you think it was about your initial email sequence when you were doing budget coaching that made someone reply to that certain email often? What do you think it was?
Oh, that's a great question, Virginia. I think
Like, what's the key? How do we get people to reply?
I would say, first of all, I was a different tone of voice than what existed in the market. I mean, FinConners were already such a small part of the overall market, but the overall market being largely the personalities of Dave Ramsey. And this is how you do it. And you better just give up all of your belongings and pay off that debt and pay. And so I remember thinking like, I know there's a nicer, softer way to do this because I had to coach myself through that of not believing everything Dave Ramsey said. And I mean this in the sense of like, I know that that's worked really well for some people. But for me, I was like, so Dave, you're telling me I shall not have a life or go to a concert until I pay off all my student loans. And I was like, no, I refuse. Because anytime Need to Breathe was like, we're going on tour, I was like, take my $80. I'm already a poor post college, like debt payoff gal with a starter job, but take my $80. I'm going to the concert. And just knowing like that lifestyle, like being able to choose the things that were most important to me and being willing to spend money on those while still like I would make sacrifices in other areas of my budget in order to account for that, but like that's how I wanted to do life. And so in general, I think that like my approach there maybe was a little bit refreshing for people looking for support, but then tactically I probably shared a story. I'm actually interested to go back and look. I don't know if I can, I bet I can find it in my drafts somewhere, or my, when I tested my emails, but it was some sort of story and some sort of question. Like, what is the one thing that you're struggling with when it comes to your finances? And just like, even if you have to say, because people are surprised when I answer sometimes. They're like, Allie actually answered. I was like, honey, it came to my inbox. Of course I answered. Like, who else is going to answer?
They think that we're not real, though. They think that I don't know. It's funny. It's like when you have a podcast or YouTube business, whatever, and they see you, like they have to know that you're a real person. Like I'm clearly not an AI figure sitting here. But when they start to get all these automations and they see you on the different platforms and they're getting your emails, it's almost like I don't know why, but there's that barrier where they don't think that you'll actually respond or they don't think that you'll actually see their comment. It's so interesting.
Well, they think you're an influencer or they think you're like a bigger brand than what we know we really are. And that's like what's kind of cool about marketing is like, yeah, I get to spread myself out way thinner on the internet than I could taking a personal, coffee date with everybody on my list, you know? So I think that just kind of surprises people. But you can even put in your email, like, reply back. I'm super interested to know your answer to this question. Make it a really simple question and say, I reply back to every email. I can't wait to hear from you. And then you actually have to go reply back to every email. And I have emails like that with my duet welcome sequence, and I won't hear a reply for weeks. And then other times I'll get 3 replies in a week. It just kind of depends on where people are at when they receive it, but the offer is there.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. Before we wrap up, give us a little bit of an update about since your podcast has launched. How is it going now? I know that you're, into it, but you're not far into the journey. So give us just like the latest feelings around what it's doing for your business, how your workflow is going. Like, give us a little step in there.
The workflow was that was hard. That was a hiccup. I did hire on an expert Airtable gal, Coley James. She helped me set up an Airtable system for like organizing soulcast guest ideas, what happens when it's actually been recorded and going into production, because it's between me. I have an executive assistant who's also like my marketing assistant, and I have an in-house editor. I have a subcontractor who does my editing. And so those two end up publishing the whole thing. I don't even listen to the episodes once they're recorded. I do have them listen to it. Like, please make sure I don't sound like a complete nincompoop. Or I'll tell them, like, I'll make edits of like, hey, I flubbed at this point, or like take out this, or keep an eye out for this point of the script or the transcript. Please edit that out. But yeah, so the workflow feels a little bit better, but it's been a little rocky at first. I will say, as far as like we are booked for production for 3 months. Like wild sauce. And so what I'm running into right now is like I want to get all these referrals from my guests because they know people I don't know, and I want to know more people, and I want to grow my reach and who knows about me as well. And so if anything, I'm running into like, what do we do with that? Like, I would like to make the introduction, but I can't really get them on my calendar. Do we have them fill out a form? Do we just put them on our list and we reach out to them later? Like, what do we do with this? Because I don't want to lose those, like, they're not sales leads. I mean, they could be eventually become clients, but like, they're podcast guest leads that people I trust have recommended. And so that's kind of where I'm running into right now is that we have we've got a pool of potential guests. And I will say I have my own limitations. I mentioned earlier, I just get sick easily. Like I was on vocal rest for like on and off 6 weeks last year. It's I joke that like, but my weak countenance. Like I feel like a Victorian woman. I'm like, but I can't go too hard. I will just wither and die. But I feel like I don't know if it's age or what's going on, but I'm like, okay, so that means we aren't doing more than 1 or 2 episodes a week on the same day. Like Mondays, 1 or 2 episodes, a solo cast like once a month. And so we're pacing ourselves as well. So I can't really just like book them all, in April because I also need time for sales calls. I need time to meet with my clients for coaching. I need to make time to support my team. And so it's really balancing all that and being okay with kind of, okay, we can hold this tension, but I would like to have some sort of solution in place for what to do with all these wonderful leads to be on the podcast.
That's a good point to bring up because I think that's something that people don't realize happens in the background when you are having an interview show, or even if you're talking to people and just trying to get like snippets out of your conversation to air on your podcast. You do end up with this alternative scheduling issue beyond what you were already feeling challenged with clients, with client work, meetings, networking, speaking, like whatever else you have going on in your business. So thank you for highlighting that.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's something I'm actively workshopping. I will say, people ask, how's the podcast going? And I'm like, I don't really know. Like,
well, my team's doing it, so I have no idea.
Well, but even just like how it's performing, I had to go look it up. I have had nearly 1,600 listens in the last 60 days.
Hey,
so that's cool.
Congratulations.
I don't know what that means. So,
that people are listening.
People are listening. 1,600 people have listened. But like, I'm not tracking stats, other than like once a month. I'm like, it'd be nice to see upward growth, but so much of my goal right now is to have really meaningful conversations and to make sure that my team feels good about the systems and that I'm practicing my calls to action throughout the different episodes. So like I'm trying to pitch different freebies. We actually call them ads, quote unquote ads. And so it could be promoting a freebie or whatnot. And then that's part of the process when I hand the episode to the editor. I put in there, like, I want to run a pre-roll ad for the Airtable content calendar that I have. And so I'll put it in there or like the 2025 book and discovery call ad that I created. So we already have the audio. We're just reusing it. Or I want it in the mid-roll. And I'm like, get creative. We've never done that before. I trust you on this, Leanne. And yeah, or a post-roll. And so that's how I'm able to communicate that to her. And I just told her from the beginning, I was like, just save those somewhere, please, because we're going to reuse them. And so I don't know what her system is. And I don't need to know. I'm enjoying, just having these really wonderful conversations, that this is a new method of me creating conversation versus writing it out in email, which like I love emails. Of course, that's what I do all of the time. But it's nice to be able to talk about it out loud.
Okay, so I'm really proud of you for doing a couple of things there that you said. It's so hard for new podcasters to just put their head down and just do the thing and not really worry about how many people are listening. And what I find is that if you start tracking stats too early in the process, which, the caveat here is like, sure, track them, but assign zero meaning to them until like episode 50, which is really hard to do. That's a long time to put your head down and almost not pay attention to the numbers, because then what happens is like, oh, only 20 people listened to my episode. Oh, only this many, only that many, only, you could be saying like only 1,600 people, like I wanted 10,000, and it ends up being this like, I'm not good enough narrative, or my show's not performing well narrative, which is BS. If you sat in a room and 20 people gathered around you to hear your episode, that's a lot of people sitting there staring at you. So good job almost not paying attention to the stats. I want you to stay on that till episode 50 or so. Again, you can track them. It's a good exercise, but hold off on assigning meaning to those numbers for a long time. So good job there. And then the other thing is this little ads conversation that you just shared with me. Pre-roll is where you run an ad before your episode. So at the very beginning, mid-roll, of course, is in the middle, post-roll is towards the end. So when you hear those bigger podcasters out there that have sponsors, you're hearing a mattress ad, you're hearing about HelloFresh, you're hearing all this stuff. That's what Allie's talking about. But this is what I encourage financial professionals to do, is to talk about your services, your thing. You're
I'm sponsoring
the sponsor. Yes, yes.
This is my time and money going into this. Yeah.
Exactly. So you can record those little snippets like what you were talking about and insert them into your episode. So while you're creating your episodes or doing your interview, you don't have to think about like, oh, how do I loop this back around so I can talk about my free thing? It's an ad. You pop it in there during editing. It's fine. So I love that you did that and that you're having your team do it. And I love how you handed it off also and said, I don't need to know how she's doing it. It's happening and it's working. And so we're just not going to mess with it. Like, she's doing a good job. Just leave it over there. I love that. So congrats.
Thank you so much. Yeah, even with just like making sure that the process internally feels good. Like, I know that when we worked with Coley in December and it's now April, I was like, I don't know. And this is just a mentality thing of like, it's not all going to feel smooth right away. And just knowing that, like telling my assistant, like back and forth, like, yep, we are developing something. We're developing something brand new. It's not going to be perfect right away. Being okay with holding that tension and tolerating that for a little while, but also knowing, Allie, don't go overboard with X, Y, or Z or creating all these other internal projects. Like, this is a project that matters. Bringing on your temporary VA matters. Like, being present with how my team is doing is part of the work. It's not like I'm not producing twice as many episodes. I probably could, or I could try. It's like, nope. It's important that we work through the steps and we fix the problems and we improve the process so that by June, it's a smooth process and we're on the same page and we don't have these questions anymore, versus just feeling like we have this backed up water flow of like, a floodgate of things that we need to do while also developing the process. And I think that that's a luxury to be able to have the time to do that. But I also, going back to not tracking your stats or putting meaning in them for a long time, is like, I decided this is a long-term strategy from the beginning. And knowing like, if I'm going to create these systems, that I'm going to have these conversations, I'm going to practice like how I promote my products, I'm going to promote this on Instagram, like that's new stuff that we have to create from scratch. So like, you have to decide, is it worth the cost of that? And I decided that it is, and therefore I can't put too much weight in the actual performance of it, because that's not going to be the determining factor, at least for a year.
Yeah. Like the ROI in the beginning is your growth. It's your growth. It's your team. It's your process. It's the practice in speaking about your brand. That's the ROI, which, I mean, how much else would you pay for like coaching around that type of stuff? I mean, that could be quite a pretty penny. So it's better to just get the practice out and build your audience while you're at it.
Yes. And it's so funny because this is what I say about email marketing. Yeah. I'm like, I don't care if there's 35 people on your list. Send the email. Practice talking about your brand.
That's the
Create
other
something
piece
valuable.
that I love is that like podcasting, or you could say YouTube, like whatever, but producing an audio or visual media is so parallel with email marketing. So parallel. Like, I love it so much. Okay, so before we go, remind us again, where can we find and follow you, and how do we get that 15-minute call with you?
Yeah, so if you want to listen to the podcast, it's Happy Subscribers on all of your channels. And then if you want to book a next step coaching call with me to talk about your email marketing and what your one next step is, they're like 15-minute calls. You can get on my calendar at duet.co/free. That's duet with 2 T's.co/FREE.
Thank you so much, Allie. It was a pleasure to talk with you today.
This was so much fun. We hit on so many great things that I'm like, yes, I haven't talked about this in a minute. So thank you for pulling that out.
Absolutely. Thank you.